Well, guys, after a season of psychedelic confusion, it has all led up to this, but where this season take us and where are we headed next season, let's find out. Hey guys, come over the season finale of Legion, Season 1, Episode 8, Chapter 8, and guys, I was obviously hyped for this finale. You guys know every episode of Legion this season I have given no less than A minus. I think the season has been pretty fucking great. I really have loved this season as a whole, and I was definitely looking forward to this finale. The way things were left off last week, it looked like we were getting down to a very intense, very game-changing finale that was going to be very different and really was going to get us to explain this show more. And as a whole, how was this finale? Very different than I expected, honestly. I thought while this finale was definitely very well done and very triumphant, it was a lot more character-driven and a lot more character-focused than I would have expected it to. And that's not a bad thing. The show has always been about character focus and, the confusion and trying to remember your story. And I think they really did get into that very well this season. And I think so much has already happened that I was okay with this being a little bit more watered down in terms of plot. I think they did a very good job with this finale overall. I thought there was a lot of unexpected stuff that I really was not expecting to happen. But let's just get into this finale because I definitely do want to get into it. Starting off with the beginning, because the way this episode starts was very surprising. Because as we know, we left off last episode with the government guy in, Division 3 coming back. And you think, okay, they're going to be the villains of this episode. They're going to have to take down this government guy. But as we see in the very beginning of this episode, there's a lot more to him than we think. And I thought it was very smart the way they did that. We see Clark, that's named the interrogator. He finally gets a name Clark, but I thought it was smart to not reveal his name till now because up till now, the show has been in either David or Sid's point of view. And to David or Sid, they don't give a fuck what his name is. His name is just the interrogator. That's all he is to them. But now that we're getting a look into this character's window, now we know his name is Clark. And for the first, I'd say 20 minutes of this episode focuses mainly on this character. He's bandaged, he's lying in a hospital bed, and he reviews talking with David and David unleashing his powers and burning him. That was the last we saw of him, obviously, in the first episode. So he wakes up and his husband and son come over, and Clark's husband Daniel tells Clark that he had a good burn, but they'll sort it out. The doctors eventually remove Clark's bandages while Daniel looks on, and his face is covered in burn tissue, like covered to the brim with just all these scars, and you can see how much this is affecting Clark. I mean, he's terrified by what he first sees. He demands a mirror. Daniel smiles sympathetically at him, and he later takes Clark to home in a wheelchair, and life goes on. Clark sits on his bed. He remembers questioning David and looks at himself in the mirror, and he goes to work. The clerk tells him he's been referred to desk duty, obviously because of how bad his burns are and things like that, and Clark tells her that he'll be working in the field, and he's going to war after the people who ambushed him at the pool. And because of what he's gone through, you can understand why he wants to take revenge out. I mean, it's not because he's evil, it's because obviously, he got severely burned, and his entire life was reconfigured because of that, and he had to change pretty much everything that he cared about, and that's all because of David. So you can you can understand why he is in vengeance of that. So he puts on his suit, he gets his cane, heads into the field, and now we go back to where we left off last week, but in a slightly different perspective. Now this is from Clark's point of view. The D3 soldiers surround David and the others. Clark tells the soldiers to kill everyone but David. David telekinetically sweeps all the soldiers into a pile, and I thought this was just a really good job to get us that window into Clark's view. This was a character we didn't really care about before, but by giving us this backstory, it got us more involved in his character. I was more invested in it, and I thought as a whole was a very smart choice to give us a lot more focus into a character than we expected to. I don't know if he's going to be a main character next season, but this definitely felt like he is going to be, and I'm interested in seeing really where they're going to take him throughout next season. So David is somehow telekinetically able to sweep all of the soldiers into a pile. I don't know how he did this, but that was definitely really cool. He tells Ptonomy to put away his gun. He then tells Clark that they have to talk. Goes back to Summerland with the others, and at the D3 base, the commander prepares to send out Team B. One man says that they should wait and see what happens next, and David and Sid then walk through the woods, and David worries that everything is a delusion caused by his schizophrenia. At this point, he just thinks that everything's fake, and Sid assures him that's that they're all real, and David has to accept it or they can't move on. I love that they explain that, because that's been something we've been wondering all season long, is are these people actually real, or has David just been imagining this the whole time? And, Sid assures him, no, we're real, and David warns her that he was in Clockworks for 6 years, we find out, drugged and useless, and it only works if it's not about him. And as David walks off, Sid basically sees herself in the White Room with something lurking beneath the sheets, and while Clark waits in a room at Summerland, David asks Melanie to let him meet the man face to Mace, basically. So Melanie refuses. Ptonomy just wants to kill them all. He thinks that's the best solution, is just to make sure, just exonerate all of them, make sure they're killed, and that's all they need to do. But Sid insists that they just can't do that, and that he might actually be of use to them. So Carrie prepares to remove the Shadow King from David's mind. I love that they all had different ideas of what to do here, because they don't know this guy. They just know this guy wants to kill them. Let's just kill him. So Carrie prepares to remove the Shadow King from David's mind. Melanie tells David to read his mind so they can't learn what D3 knows, and Carrie warns that the Halo is starting to lose power. It doesn't have much time left, and the Shadow King will erase David's mind permanently if they don't get him out, which obviously that's the thing that we've been worried about throughout a lot of the season, is that David's mind will be completely erased. So Carrie then brings Clark some water, and Carrie, standing guard, tells Carrie to put the glass on the table. He does so, and Clark takes it. Carrie refuses to talk to Carrie, and Clark wonders if they had a fight. Carrie starts to explain, as we know, they're not in the best place right now, because they really don't know, how they're going to rely on each other after Carrie not being able to fight. They've had quite a, they've definitely had quite a dispute with that, and it's kind of caused this rift between them. So Carrie tells him to leave, and obviously it's hard for them to explain that they are the same person. It's hard for them to explain that to Clark, so it definitely is kind of rough there. But Melanie stands out in the balcony and remembers her conversation with Oliver, and she asks him to have dinner with her. Oliver says that she reminds him of someone, but it's not his wife. So again, slowly he is starting to come through, but he doesn't think that she's his wife. And Melanie then goes to Clark, suggests that he stop with the threats because there's no reason to do that. She introduced herself. Clark says that he knows all about her, and he warns that D3 will come looking for him when they don't check in and bring an army. And Melanie tells Clark that David has come into his power, and D3 is simply useless against him, that David's just too powerful of a being for D3 to take him down. They think they can, but they can't. He's just too powerful for them, and the best thing to do is to just work alongside each other, and I like that we really did get into that in this episode. So David's outside levitating and meditating, and he tries to work out what is real. Melanie and Carrie then bring Clark over. David tells him that the war is over if Clark wants it to be. If he doesn't want them to be against each other, David is fine with not having a war. They don't really need to have a war. And later, Clark watches as Carrie prepares to move the Shadow King from David's mind. David keeps telling Clark that he doesn't have to be afraid. Clark says he's afraid of all of them because they're gods, and one day they won't have to listen to humanity anymore. And that's something that the X-Men, as we know, have gone through. That's something that they've always been afraid of, that the X-Men are just more powerful beings, and they have these powers, and because of them having those powers, it gives them a lot more advantages, and that's the thing that really does scare Clark, that he is human. He has this deformity, and he doesn't have any sort of power. They do have powers, and that obviously does scare him. So Sid finds herself back in the White Room, and a decaying Lenny reveals herself on the bed, and Lenny is not the Lenny we've seen for these past 7 episodes. This Lenny is decaying. She's, dying. I mean, it's disgusting, but Aubrey Plaza, as usual, did such a great job as essentially this parasite. She is definitely a parasite in this episode. She does have a lot of dialogue, but the doors are locked. Lenny says that Sid is going to help her. She turns into the devil and back to Lenny, and Lenny Devil says that they're all connected, and Sid tells Lenny to stop, explains that her mother died of cancer a few years back, and they put the tumor in a bag, just like they'll dispose of the Shadow King. I thought it was interesting to get a little look into that. We haven't known a ton about Sid's history, but yeah, now we know her mother died of cancer, and Lenny says that Sid will have to help her get away because she'll kill David otherwise, and otherwise the only way they'll get her out of David's mind will just be to kill him. So when Sid wonders how she'll do it, Lenny tells her that she'll figure it out. Obviously it seems impossible now, but she's going to have to figure out how to do that. So Back in the real world, David says that he needs a meeting with Clark's superiors so that he can change their minds. He passes out, and Sid says that David has a very old mutant in his head, and Sid figures that Clark likes David and asks if he wants to help. Clark hesitates, and Ptonomy and Carrie then take him back to his cell. Later, Carrie and Oliver hook up the unconscious David to the equipment, and meanwhile, the man in charge, General Stanley, who's in charge of Division 3, he watches Clark on the monitor, decides to give him another hour before they nuke Summerland, because obviously they were planning on just completely destroying Summerland. You know, Summerland was of no use to them, they're just going to destroy it, but basically, David wakes up, he says that he can feel the king trying to force him out, and Oliver tells David to hold on a little longer, surrounds him with a laser cage. He walks out, Sid asks how it works, and Carrie explains he's created a magnetic field that will suck out anything that isn't David's mind. Anything that isn't, something David's mind is just going to suck out, because obviously they need to make sure that David's mind is still intact, and he activates the device. David goes into convulsions, his memories flash through his mind, and there's a lot of stuff that could have obviously gone wrong here. I mean, they could have easily found, something where they take out David's minds. There's a lot of stuff going on where his memories just flashing before him, where he's starting to regain consciousness and regain his memories, and I thought all of that was just really well handled here. That's something this entire season has banked on, is the idea of, knowing your mind and being in control of your mind, which David hasn't been all season. This is really the first time he's getting his memories back, and I really did love the way this episode really showed that. So the king pounds on the coffin surrounding him. Oliver checks the generator. Sid remembers what Lenny said about David dying, and meanwhile, Carrie warns the king is fighting back. So David sees himself as a baby, which this is the first scene we ever saw of the show, if you remember, was David as a baby, and the devil appears in David's memories. He forces it to take on Lenny's appearance and wonders what he would be without the king. So Lenny says that she's not leaving, chokes David, and Sid tells the other to stop the procedure as David knows starts bleeding. And Sid is terrified because, again, she knows that Lenny will just kill David, so she's terrified that's going to happen. An alarm goes off. Carrie calls for Oliver for more power. Sid goes to David over Melanie's objections, and Carrie and Clark are watching the procedure on a monitor. Carrie catches a glimpse of David and goes to the lab. Sid goes to David as Carrie runs in. Melanie yells at Sid to stop, but Sid kisses David. A burst of energy knocks her away. She stands up, her eyes yellow, smiles smiles. Sid pulls off her gloves as Carrie runs in with a syringe, and the king and Sid touches Carrie, enters Carrie's body. Sid collapses. Carrie kicks Carrie as Ptonomy runs in, opens fire, and I love the way the king is just, rapidly going through different people, trying to find a host, because as we know, the king needs a host. It just can't go through, it needs to go through any one of them. So the king knocks the gun aside, tosses him aside, walks out, and then shoots Melanie with her pointed fingers, literally shoots her, and Carrie then walks down the hallway. Clark hits in the head with his cane. The devil telekinetically knocks Clark away. David levitates down from the ceiling and smiles. He and Carrie then charge at each other, and I thought that was really cool the way that was done, the way that they were charging each other and basically trying to take on this thing together. But Oliver then works on the power. He stops for a moment as he remembers who Melanie is, and it's such this well-done moment where finally, after 7 episodes, he finally remembers what Melanie actually is, and he finally starts to regain memories, which would make sense. As we know, basically the thing that happened to David is the same thing that happened to Oliver, so when David gets back his memories, so does Oliver. It actually does make a lot of sense in that regard, and I thought that was honestly really well done. The way that he started to remember what was going on, I thought that was definitely very well handled, and I think they really did tap into that quite well here. I really love the way that was done. I thought that was definitely one of the highlights here, but David and Carrie then slam together. Summerland shakes with the impact, and repalled, the king shoots back, hits Oliver as he steps out of the power room, and after a moment, Oliver walks out amidst the chaos, gets in his car, he starts driving away, and he literally is like singing like Pink Floyd or whatever, so it seems that Oliver's unharmed, like he's okay with what happened. It seems like things are fine there. However, then we get to the ending where David wakes up, checks on Carrie, tells her that the king is gone, and he then helps Clark up, tells him that they're going to have to work together, and that's what seemed like Season 2 is going to be, that these two are going to have to work together, Division 3 and Summerland, they're going to work together to take down the king, because the king's obviously not defeated. The Shadow King is still out there. Clark agrees and says that he'll talk to his superiors. David goes to the lab, wakes up Melanie, tells her that the king is gone, and Carrie then runs to Carrie, confirms that he's okay, and hugs him. And it's, again, a very satisfying moment where we see that Carrie and Carrie reunited. I thought that was definitely very well done. I really like seeing them work through that. But David goes to Sid, tells her she shouldn't have killed him, and he says that he feels better, and Carrie points out the fact that the king still needs a host. If it's not going through one of them, it still does need some sort of host in them. And they perfectly set this up where Melanie asks where Oliver is, and we cut to Oliver. He's driving down the road. Lenny is in the passenger seat. She says that they should go first go somewhere warm. So now it looks like Lenny is going to possibly be in Oliver, and Oliver's going to have to take hold of the Shadow King, and he's going to be the one that has a Shadow King stuck in his mind. But then we have a post-credit scene, which I thought was honestly kind of surprising, but not that surprising because it's Marvel. Marvel tends to do this a lot, but that night, David and Sid go out on a balcony. David says that Oliver and Lenny are heading south. Just as a metal drone flies up, it scans David and beams him inside of it, and then flies away. So who knows what that's all about, what this metal beam is, but that is the way this episode ends. Let's just get into this finale and where I think we're going to go in Season 2. So overall, guys, definitely not the finale I expected to get, but still a very well done finale in that regard. Now, was it the best episode of the season? No, I don't think this was the best episode. I think because of how strong some of the earlier episodes was, this one was still a bit lacking, but it was still a great episode. I really did love a lot of stuff that went down here. But let's talk about where I think Season 2 is headed, because there's a lot of stuff I think they set up very well for Season 2. First of all, what is this metal orb that David is now in? We haven't seen this metal orb before. It just sort of appeared, but I don't know what that's about. If the Shadow King's going to try to reclaim David as its host or show that it's not as easy as David thinks. But if we have another season with David in a state of confusion, I feel like it's just going to get repetitive. And I hope the show's not going to go in that direction. They've done such a good job with making this feel like basically a prologue and having Season 2 be the actual story. But now, I don't know if that's really going to be the case. I mean, obviously, there's definitely, we don't know what this metal drone's all about. We don't know how this all went down. I hope the show does lead us up to those moments. Like, we don't start off the season, David's in a metal drone. I hope we see what happened up till then, like how this all went down and what really led us to that. But we'll have to see what happens there. I like that it is confusing because, again, we're not really supposed to understand the show. That's always been one of the key points, that you're not really supposed to understand what's going on. I think they did that quite well. But why does David know where Oliver and Lenny are going? And more so, why is he okay with it? Like, why is he okay with Lenny getting into Oliver's head? I don't really understand that. I don't understand how he knows that's what's going down there. Lenny's not connected to him anymore. So how does he know that that's where they're headed? We'll have to see really where that's going to go. Oliver definitely, I think, is going to be the one who has Lenny in his head and is going to be, I think, corrupted by Lenny. So we'll have to see where that ends up going. I really am happy to see that Aubrey Plaza sticking around. I was not looking forward to seeing her go. I'm glad to see she's sticking around the show. I loved her this season. She definitely has been one of the strongest characters, I think, of this entire season. So I'm happy to see that she is sticking around because I really like what she had to do throughout the season. I thought she definitely was quite great. As far as Clark, though, I really like the way this episode got into Clark as a character, because not only do we see that Clark, he had a reason to be against Summerland, but now he's realizing Summerland, they're not terrible people. They're just superior to him, and that's something that it scares him. I mean, he is a human. They're not just humans. They are, essentially Inhumans, or X-Men, or whatever you want to call them, X-Men, mutants, whatever. He's afraid of them because of that, because they're so much more powerful, because they have so much more external power, because they are, inhabited with these abilities that he just doesn't have, and it scares him. But as he's seeing, they're not terrible people. He can still work alongside them, and I think that's where Season 2 is going to go. We're going to see Summerland and D3 team up. We're going to see them working together, and I'm looking forward to that. I actually do want to see them working together. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all goes down, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see is how these two, if they can actually, can they work alongside each other? I think that's something that's going to be very interesting to watch, is how are they going to work together. I'm interested in getting into all that, because I think that definitely is going to be quite interesting. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. As far as Melanie, you got to feel bad for her, because it seemed like Oliver was starting to finally remember who she was, and right when it seemed like she got her husband back, Oliver now seems to be on Lenny's, with Lenny, and it seems that he is going to be corrupted by Lenny. And of course, as we know, the king needs a host, and I think Oliver is going to be said host next season. I hope that's not the case. I hope that we see Oliver still have some semblance of remembering Melanie and be able to take down Lenny. Maybe it'll be a twist and that actually is solved in episode 1. I don't really know. But I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go. I think that overall is going to be interesting to see Oliver try to fight Lenny. I don't know if he's going to be successful, but I'm interested in seeing where that's really going to go. I think all that's going to be very interesting. And then as far as some of the other characters, like Carrie and Carrie, I thought it was cool to see them basically rely on each other and find their purpose, how they really need each other, how they really need to help each other. I thought that was definitely very well done. Seeing Sid give David comment, I thought was definitely really good. And that's really it. This finale, like I said, was pretty simple as a whole. It was basically, the first half was Clark's backstory with his kind of like, gaining trust, him learning to trust Summerland. The second half was David overcoming the Shadow King. I thought both sides were definitely very well done. It was definitely a simplistic episode, but still a very well done finale in that regard. But that's nothing compared to the season, because this season has been one of the best I've seen in quite a while. I think this season as a whole, it's been very ambitious, and it's been very different, but I applaud the show for doing that. When this show started, they said, Legion is unlike anything you've seen before. I was like, yeah, right. Obviously, there's been shows like Legion. There clearly is nothing after the season. There's nothing like this show. Oh, no. There's nothing like this show out there. I really can't think of... The only show I can really think of is like Hannibal and things like that, but even Hannibal, that show had an intro. That show felt like a TV show. This show never really felt like a TV show. It felt like scenes of a TV show, but it never felt like a full-fledged TV show, and I'm really glad the show decided to do that. It stayed weird. It stayed different. It stayed in its own sort of realm, and I love the way the show... try to do that. I love that they didn't try to connect it to X-Men. There were the thinnest of threads here and there. Like, they definitely did try to tap into the X-Men world, but they weren't overtly concerned with making this part of the X-Men universe. They did reference Professor X here and there. I think we're going to tap more into that next year, definitely. Patrick Wilson said he is willing to... Patrick Stewart said he is willing... I always do that. Patrick Stewart says he is willing to come back to the show if he needs... if they want him to, so... I hope that they are able to get him next season, because I think that'd be really cool if they did that. As a whole, though, this season's been fantastic. I really have loved everything we've gotten into this season. Like I said, they've really tapped into David's abilities quite well. You cared about these characters. You like where they went. I thought that they really did a great job making every episode feel somewhat different. Every episode felt like its own thing. It felt like its own show, and I love the way they did that this season. It never really felt like it had... It was consistent, definitely, but it never really bored you. It always felt like its own thing. It was completely Noah Hawley's version. I'm glad the show decided to stick with that. My only real complaints with the season, as I said, Amy as a character, David's sister, not that interesting. I really did not find her to be that interesting. I thought they could have done a lot more with her this season, but the fact that she wasn't in this finale really just show how irrelevant her storyline was to everything. But I do think they did a very good job of setting things up, like David and Philly's relationship. I think we're going to get more into that next season, see where the downfall of that went, because that just kind of went away. I don't think that went away. I think that was them setting that up and showing, where that relationship is going to go. Or David and Amy's relationship, what's their relationship really like? Is David going to find his birth father? All that kind of stuff. David and Sid, can they have a normal relationship? Now that David is back to normal, can they have some semblance of a normal relationship? Ptonomy, we don't really know a ton about Ptonomy. We know the one thing about him having to watch his mother die over and over again, but other than that, we don't know much else about him, so I'm sure we're going to get more into that. Melanie, is she going to be able to reconnect with Oliver? Carrie and Carrie, they're going to be able to continue to rely on each other, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of interesting arcs going on this season, all really within the interface of the Shadow King. The Shadow King really is, like I said, the one who is, the main threat, and I'm interested in seeing really where all this is going to go. I can't wait to see where Season 2 is going to take us. I really did love the season as a whole, and if I had to grade this finale, I would give Season 1, Episode 8, Chapter 8, a 4.5 out of 5 or an A-. Like I said, just the slightest disappointment because I was expecting an all-out war, and what I got here was a well-done battle, but essentially setting up Season 2, which was fine. I thought it was definitely a good finale. We had a good run overall, and I thought it still was a fantastic end, definitely. And then if I had to grade the season, I would definitely give the season of Legion a 4.75 out of 5 or an A. But overall, guys, that's it. Legion is now over. I can't believe it. The season has gone by so fast. I have loved reviewing every episode to you guys. I think every episode has really given us something great to talk about. Every episode, I was very wrong with where I thought the show was going to go, and I'm happy about that. I like it when the show surprised me. I like when a show goes in a different direction. I think it's cool the show decided to do that. But that's it, guys. The season's now over. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts on it. Did you like the way it wrapped up? Where you think season 2 is going to go? Maybe season 2 goes in a completely different direction than we think. I don't really know. Noah Hawley says he's trying to keep it very secretive, but he's going to try to premiere at the same time that season 1 did, and there's going to be 10 episodes already. So he already has it all planned out, which I'm very happy about. Like I said, it was completely his vision, and I'm glad that they decided to keep it as his vision. But that's my review. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the first season of iZombie. Yes, I am binging iZombie in anticipation of season 3 on Tuesday. In order to get caught up to that, I need to review the first 2 seasons, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.